I have fought very firmly against white domination. I have fought very firmly against black domination. I cherish the ideal of a new South Africa where all South Africans are equal.
Welcome to another episode of Use Your Difference, the place to be if you want to raise your culture awareness to the next level. So today we are discussing the great, the legendary, late Nelson Mandela. So who exactly was Nelson Mandela? Nelson Mandela was a South African activist and the former president of South Africa. He helped bring an end to apartheid and has been a global advocate for human rights. As a member of the African National Congress Party beginning in the 1940s, he was a leader of both peaceful protests and armed resistance against white minorities' oppressive regime in the racially divided South Africa. His actions landed him in prison for nearly 3 decades, 27 years, that's insane, and made him the face of the anti-apartheid movement both within his country and internationally. Released in 1990, he participated in the eradication of apartheid and in 1994 became the first black president of South Africa, forming a multi-ethnic government to oversee the country's transition. After retiring from politics in 1999, he remained a devoted champion for peace and social justice in his own nation and around the world until his death in 2013 at the age of 95. So why was he such a great leader? Well, for one thing, he was able to see the bigger picture. The first thing that he was able to do by seeing the bigger picture was forgive. He has this famous quote where he says, "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison." Nelson Mandela went from being the personification of opposition to being a symbol of freedom. And the reason he was able to do this is because of his ability to be flexible and shift his leadership style. Mandela wanted a South Africa where blacks had a voice before he went to prison, and he wanted the same thing when he came out, but he was less militant about it. He changed his approach, but didn't change his values.
Our emotion said the white minority is an enemy. We must never talk to them. But our brain said, if you don't talk to this man, your country will go up in flames. And for many years to come, this country will be engulfed in rivers of blood. So we had to reconcile that conflict. And our talking to the enemy was the result of the domination of the brain over emotions.
Okay, I'm still trying to understand though. You began the peace talk and you end up coming out of prison and there is no bitterness. How is there no bitterness?
Well, I hated oppression. And when I think about the past, the type of things they did, I feel angry. You have a limited time to stay on earth. You must try and use that period for the purpose of transforming your country into what you desire it to be. A democratic, non-racial, non-sexist country. And that was a great task.
Now, I don't know about you, but not a lot of people are going to be able to forgive people that have physically harmed you and put you in jail for over 20 years. That's insane. But that's part of seeing the bigger picture. Another instance of Mandela seeing the bigger picture was during the 1994 Rugby World Cup. And the way he saw the bigger picture here was, if you remember in the movie Invictus, which was depicted by Matt Damon and Morgan Freeman, you remember there was a scene where Nelson Mandela, Morgan Freeman's character, put on this long sleeve Springbok jersey which was so segregated and didn't allow black players to be on there, which was such a sport that was associated with white power. And Nelson Mandela said he was going to put on the shirt and walk down the field. So he emerged into the bright sunshine and stepped onto that lush field, put on the cap, His long sleeve green rugby jersey was untucked and buttoned right up to the top. On the back, it was a gold number 6, big and bold. It was the captain, Francois Pienaar. And within seconds, there were chants that went up. Nelson! Nelson!
I'm trying to understand what the chant is. I realized that these white South African people were chanting their president's name.
This is Nelson.
Nelson, Nelson.
Nelson, Nelson.
Nelson, Nelson, that was one voice.
I never thought that we would hear that at a rugby stadium. At the time, I think it was just fantastic.
We didn't know what hit us. I mean, it was just the most phenomenal. It was really quite incredible.
The image of a joyous Mandela celebrating with the national team was mirrored in every corner of the once broken country. South Africans at last were rejoicing as one.
He was a man who dared to fight for what he believed in. He was a man who dared to stand up for the people who couldn't stand, be a voice for the people who couldn't have a voice, and be a light in time of darkness. As you're hoping to lead your organization full of people of different backgrounds, remember the one thing that does matter. That is that love conquers all, and that there is an ability to work with different people if you do find the way. Using differences as walls as opposed to bridges is never a way to progress. Seek to understand, seek to educate yourself, and see the bigger picture. You never know what you find. Till next week, use your difference to make a difference.